Hiya, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be quite a depressing video because I'm doing quite a depressing job. As you can see, the BMW is in the shitter position, and the reason is, well, there's a clue on floor there, see that? There is a massive clue as to why the BMW is in the shitter position, and it is because, well, yes, as you can see, the plastic vanity cover has been removed carefully. There's no residing in a good place. But underneath it, we have, well, yes, look at that. What a shitter. Anyway, so this sill on the outside is going to require some welding tons. And I mean, I quite like welding. And I quite like welding, but I don't like welding rusty old fucking cars. That is like, well, I'd rather boil my dick in chip fat, to be honest with you. But that is not the situation that we're in. We're in doing this, aren't we? Just doing this now. So, this rubber bung for the jacking point has got, hold on, can we see anything? No, we can't. It's got some sort of bolt there holding it on, which I'm going to take out. I think that's how it's held on. I'm going to get that off anyway and I'm going to see what's underneath it. But first I'm going to put it on some of these ramps here. And what's brilliant about these ramps in this car is that the car is too low to drive up the ramps without ripping the bumper off. So it'll go up, but it won't come back off again, because the bumper ends up hooking on the back of here and then it fucks the bumper up. So I need to go and forage for something. Shit. I need to go and forage for something to put underneath the tyres to drive onto, to raise the car a little bit, to then drive it up. Let's go and see what we can find. There's a skip here. See what we've got. Don't think any of that will work. That might work. Nope, that isn't going to work, so I need to go and find something. Yes. So to take the jacking point off, there is a black plastic thing in the middle, which I've pulled out, and I'm hoping once I've done that, it is exactly the same and still doesn't come off, and it appears that I'm right about that. Yes. However, with a bit more determination, it has come off. So we are left with this thing of beauty. Now the jacking point inside the sill seems to be quite solid. That seems to be okay. I've not investigated it properly yet. It's just the outer skin that's gone, you know, turned to holes and shit. So we'll have to cut some of this out. That's the plan anyway. So let's crack on with that shit. Right, so now we've got the rubber bung out the way and took a few more bolts out, and we've got this under tray nice and skillfully held out the way. Now we can investigate as to where the rot stops. And to make this so it's a decent repair, we actually had to chop out. It's probably going to be about, you know, probably there to about there. It's going to be quite big because we need to get back to good metal, and I'm not patching over it, I'm going to cut it out. That's my plan anyway. If you look at this here, this is a double skin because the sill will originally be spot welded to the piece underneath. So I need to see if I can see the original spot welds to pull it off and then cut a section out of it, something like round there. Before I can do any of that though, I'm going to have to take a wire wheel to it and see where the metal stops and where the rust fucking starts. And then when I realise I've got no car left and there's just a pile of red dust on the floor, that is when I'll give up. But yeah, let's stay tuned for that. But before I know for sure, I need to lovingly attack this with this wire brush and just take it back until it is, you know, metal again. So we'll just so I've been at it with grinder for a bit, put wire brush on it, and you can, if you see this line here, that is pretty much where I'm going to cut. So I'm going to cut around there, along there a little bit, and then to the back there, and then that is spot welded underneath. You can see some spot welds, I'd like to be able to drill them out, but I don't think that's going to work out to plan. I think I'll just end up cutting it with grinder and fucking making a mess of it, actually. Never pretty welding rusty cars. It's never a bonny job, or very rarely. So anyway, that is, I'm going to cut this out now with a slitting disc. Try not to cut my arm off. And now we are rapidly approaching the point of no return. Right, so I've sort of cut all the way around it now, and it's it'll still be held on with little bits, and it's actually on fire before I've even started welding, so that's a good sign, isn't it? That seems to be. Yes. Yes. Yes, it's spot welds under there as well. Fucking brilliant. Right, so I'll have to do some more cutting. Yes. Just look at this. This is just. This is what I live for. This, you know. Ever an advert for doing well at school? It's this. I need to carry on and take this more off. These spot welds that connect to the inner sill along there, which I've had to cut off as well. All fun. Right, so now I have got the section of outer sill off and the jacking point. Now, the problem is with this now is, yeah, inside there it's starting to rust a bit. Most of it's just surface rust actually, but it is starting to go a bit there. But the problem is where do I stop? You know, if I start fixing everything I see, I will never stop. I need to weld up. Before I put any plating on the outside of this, I need to repair this jacking point and where I've cut into it with grinder. You know, there's some slits there which I need to weld back up, but I also need to, I'm just going to patch this here, and I just need to connect this to here on both sides. Just give it a bit of a bit more metal and just, well, without going mad, just build it back up a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do before I cut any plate out for the outside. Whenever you're doing welding on a vehicle, on a car, you're supposed to remove the battery. Not entirely sure why, never really looked into it. It's just something I've always been told to do and I've always done. And I've just done a quick job of welding. I put a little patch in there, just joined this up, and you know where I slit it with a grinding disc when I was cutting that patch out. So all this is now stitched together. It's not the neatest job I've ever done. No one will ever see it, and it'll be better than what it was. So now I'm going to start making the panel. Before I do that though, I need to put some coating on this because it will just rust really fast. And for which I'm going to use this extremely expensive Dinatrol spray, corrosion protection. It's like a condom for rust. So I'm going to spray a bit of this on, and what you'll see is, right, I've already shook it up lovingly. But this is probably a dumb idea because I'm going to weld this soon. I probably shouldn't be putting that on, which says it's, you know, flammable. But I'm going to do it anyway. Anyway. It goes on clear. And then where it finds rust, it goes black. And I'll leave that to dry for as long as possible before proceeding with the struggle. And as we can see, that is starting to do something. So whilst that's drying, I've got to make the plate up, which means using some steel and a grinder. You can use the, you know, bit of paper and a dirty finger technique to make stencil, but fortunately, I've pretty much got the shape of it on the piece that I've cut out. So I need to flatten that off and draw around it, which leaves us with this work of fucking art. Anyway, I'm going to cut on the inside of the marker lines because, well, that's where the metal stops. So, slitting disc on grinder and then just cut it out. And there is our plate, which is going to fit something, well, something like that, but I need to put some bends in it. So I need to put a bend in it there and a bend in it there. It's not going to be perfect. This isn't a bodywork job. This is a, you know, welding up rusty sills job. I'll get it something like, but I need to put it in the vise and take a Hamuel Jackson to it, I think. I'm going to drill some holes in this part here as well along here to spot weld it back on. So I'll mark that with a marker where it needs to be bent, and then I shall bend the shitter. So I've used my hole maker to make some holes. So with a little bit of manipulation of this steel plate, we are nearly ready to weld. I must stress that when you're welding cars up, you need a, that we're going to just squid it in my face, but a health and safety executive approved fire extinguisher just in case. This is where it sort of fits. Now, I'll get the shape better when I start welding it, because I'll have something to knock it against, but it should pretty much line up. Until I get to there, I think it's going to be too short, but I'll just fill that gap in with weld or something. But anyway, let's tack it into place. Right, so I've started with the plug welds, spot welds, whatever you want to call them there. You got to press it up while you weld it, so it's, you know, so it's tight really. But now it's just a case of lining all the edges up and just welding round it, but doing little. You don't want to weld too far at once, because if I start to warp everything, which doesn't really matter down here on the sill, but the other thing is you'll probably set fire to the car. I'm not going to film any of the welding because, well, I can't really show it. You know, I'm not got a filter for the phone. I can't hold the phone and weld, and it's going to be piss poor to watch anyway, because it's going to be shit. You know, it's not exactly going to be nice welding. So anyway, I'm going to when I get to the next step as such, I'll stop and see if there's anything to show. Right, so I've made a start on the welding. Like I say, it doesn't really matter how neat it is, because it's going to get ground off anyway. But you're doing like attack and then attack and then attack. You don't really want to do a full run, because it will not work. Well, it might work, it just won't work very well. So now I've joined this to here, joined that to there, and made sure that the plate is lined up before I start welding it. Like this here, where the plate is stuck down, I need to make sure it's lined up at each point before I put a tack in. So I'll carry on struggling with the shitter. Right, so as ugly as that is, it is welded all the way around, and it's plug welded there, plug welded there. Everywhere it originally welded or connected, it is connected. But this is pretty good. Look, watch this. Yes. Now, I've got a nice gap to fill in there when I'm welding that. Like I said, or I've said multiple times, don't worry about the well, the messiness of my welds, because they're going to get ground off. They're going to get completely ground off. That's the plan anyway. As long as I don't run out of battery or grinding discs on that, then it'll be alright. I mean, I actually quite like welding, and I usually do it quite neat. Insert picture here. But welding musty cars is just not something that I enjoy doing. So as long as it's got enough weld on it, joined together, then I can grind it flat. Well, on my own car anyway. That'll do. So I'm going to finish off by welding round it and then taking that fucking grinder to it. And now we are welded all the way around. So the patch is in. You know, that is, well, from a MOT standard, it's welded all the way around and what have you. Should be okay. But it looks a mess, so let's get my grinder on it and do a bit of that and see if we can make it look a bit more pretty. Which, as you can see, makes all the difference. So we've got, now I've ground the welds off, a bit too shiny actually, it's not really showing up. Pretty much ground the welds off as flush as it needs to be. It's welded all the way around, and it's roughly something like the right shape. It'll never be seen. It's covered up by a vanity cover, which I'm not putting on because the car's going in for paint on the arches, so there's no point in putting that on yet. But that is to weld a patch in a sill, and waste time doing that. So anyway, that's all. I'm going to leave it at that. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to put some of this on. I'm going to put some more of this on. Give it a good coating of this shit. And it's all just going to be mouth. That tastes horrible. And I'll go right under. We'll give it a nice bladdering with it, which dries something like that. And I've got, actually, right, this is the correct It's supposed to be the correct colour, but I mean, is anything ever the correct colour when metallics when you're painting next to each other? But it doesn't really matter, like I say, it's not going to get seen. But I've got it, so I might as well give it a coat. And wait for that to dry. And then when it's dry, quick coat of lacquer, make it nice and shiny. Obviously taking precautions for overspray, as in leaving the car dirty so there's nowhere for it to stick to. The more the merrier, really. And now I just need to get hold of some wax oil for the inside of the sill. But first, you see there is a line of stone chip. So I've got some of that stone chip and some masking tape. So just put a layer of that on as well. I just put shitloads on, really. So once you've liberally applied some of that, then wait for that to dry again. I'll give it another colour coat. You know, I don't know. Well, it's not that important, but like I said, I've got the paint, so I might as well. Yes. I think you know where I'm going with this. I've fed the pipe into the sill, and as I'm pressing it, I'm going to pull it out. But I do need two hands for that, so I can't really demonstrate in a you know, any sort of useful way. So you just have to guess. I'm not forgetting to do the outside of the sill as well, because it's like a two-part sill on this. So all I've done is the back side of the sill now, but I need to do the front side as well. So I'll take these two bungs out and do the same shit, like so. And the general rule for me with wax oil, or cavity wax, is you've used enough when you've run out. And another quick coat of paint and lacquer. And put it back together. Well, like I said, I'm not putting the cover back on because the car is going in for some paint, as I've already said. So that is where I'm going to leave it now. That is actually where I'm going to leave it this time. But yeah, jacking points back in. This cover's back on. I mean, the cover on the outside holds it up to there better. But all that's back together. So that is done. It's full of wax oil. Used a full tin on the shitter. So yeah, that's it. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, like, all that shit. Tell me where I've done it wrong, because there's always someone to do that. And I forgot to mention before, when I was welding this on, where I cut round the original plate, you know, where I drew round it and I left a gap around it, that was because I was grinding the welds flat. So I want a gap to weld to so that the weld comes through the other side. Otherwise, if you grind it flat and you've got it butted up against each other, you can end up with, I mean, it's unlikely to happen because I have the welder turn quite high when I'm doing this, you know, higher than what most people usually do with this sort of work. But just to be on the safe side, little gap, and then you sort of backfilling it, so you've got the full thickness of the plate again once you grind it off. So yeah, like I said, that is it for this one. So see you next time, bro.